So the ground control has three positions. The triangle's where you're normally going to search, and that'll automatically ground balance and track to changes in the ground, and you just never have to mess with the ground at all. Now, sometimes you can get into some rusty man-made iron areas that will trick the tracking. It'll want to track to the rust and the corrosion factors. In those areas with lots of man-made irons, it's like a burned down building, you'd want to lock the track setting. So you let it bounce to the ground and then lock it. It'll hold that setting and it won't be confused in those areas that have a lot of man-made rust. The other setting is salt. You can go to salt in any of the three modes. If you're on a saltwater beach, of course, that's the primary reason you'd want to go to the salt setting. The other reason, in some of the relic hunting areas in the farm fields, heavy fertilization with silver nitrates, when it gets wet, it simulates salt. So some of the farm fields, if they're real heavily mineralized, you'd want to also use the salt setting. Now, say if I get into a lot of man-made rust and I lock my ground setting and I'm searching along and I think, well, gee, maybe I'm out of balance. I can just press grab and it'll update the ground balance setting. So it's tracking all the time. Even though I've locked it, it's not going to change the ground balance setting, but it's looking at that changes in the ground. So when I hit grab, it instantaneously goes to that setting that tracking would have been at if I'd been in tracking the whole time. And that might be used if you're moving away from the rusty area, or if you just want to update the ground setting, just press grab. You also have the backlight up here on the display. Turn the backlight off and on and adjust the levels. And you have the tone ID options here up on the display. The on-off gain has the triangle up here pretty high. It's going to go deeper if you have your gain set higher or further clockwise. But at some point it's going to get nervous and jumpy and unstable. You have to have this gain at a setting that works so that you can identify what a real target is as opposed to just noise from being set too high in the sensitivity setting. Another thing you might run into is invisible dog fences in rural areas. You might run into some where the detector just starts chattering. You have to reduce gain until it stabilizes so you can tell what a target sounds like and what just non-targets sound like. The dual control has two functions. In the coin and jewelry mode, it is a traditional discrimination dial. The higher it goes, the more trash you eliminate. It doesn't have any notches. You need to use the display to look at your different notch categories. But typically people would set this at the highest point that still gives you a good solid sound on a nickel. It gives you a good solid sound on the nickel, but anything that's below the nickel, like your nails and your foil, is rejected. Anything above the nickel, your aluminum scraps, they're still going to sound out, and you use the display to sort out some of those common targets, say like the screw caps. Again, it has to be area specific. So if you dig 5 or 6 targets that all read a same VDI number and it's junk that you're not interested in, you can be sure there's a lot more in that area, and you can start watching for that VDI number as being one that you're not interested in. In the prospecting mode, this is an SAT setting. An SAT is self-adjusting threshold. That makes the detector smooth and stable over minor inconsistencies. So ground tracking is going to be updating the ground balance setting automatically. But there can be little pebbles and stuff of high mineral or low mineral and makes the detector a little noisy. A little bit more SAT will smooth those out so it won't give you any of those fluctuations and to make it a lot easier to use. Some of the tone AD options on the MXT All Pro is you have the one tone, of course, which everything sounds the same, except your rejected targets are going to give you that cutout, that broken or inconsistent tone. The two-tone gives you a higher tone for your good targets and a lower tone for your rejected targets. Now, it also has an iron ID option, which sounds similar, but it is quite different because it depends on where you set your discriminator, where your break point is. But you get the high tone for targets accepted and the lower tone for the rejected. So by using one of those 3-tone ID modes, you can be immediately alerted to whether you're interested in the target or not before you even look at the screen. And I think with all metal detectors, you really need to listen to that audio first, and the display needs to be a secondary opinion, secondary look. What you're looking for is a solid repeatable beep in a good area on the display, and then you're ready to pinpoint.